Hello YouTube, my name is Janie, and on this channel I post whatever the hell I want to, pretty much. I am an amateur, mostly self-taught quilter, and I've been thinking it might be fun to record myself working on my various sewing projects while I talk about whatever random BS that's crossing my mind at the moment. Sometimes I'll talk about the project I'm working on and kind of my process. Sometimes I'll talk about whatever fandom I'm in at the moment. Sometimes I'll do a little bit of both or a lot of neither. Now, before we go any further into this, I do just want to give a quick language warning. I feel like some people may click on this thinking, oh, a quilting video, this must be some nice, wholesome, housewifey fun. Well, no, that's not what this is going to be. I'm foul-mouthed, my sense of humor can be pretty raunchy and or dark, and these are probably going to be largely unscripted, or if I do have a script, it will probably be mostly rambling word vomit that I will not attempt to censor at all. I'm not planning on monetizing this channel. I want this to be something that's fun and low effort for me, so this will likely just be a lot of brain rot, and a lot of that brain rot will probably not be very family friendly. So if you don't want to hear that, or you're in public, whatever, this is your chance to click off or grab some headphones, okay? Alright. So if you're still here, today I will be talking a little bit about this project that I'm working on here. So this is a flower garden quilt. I think grandmother's flower garden quilt is like the official term for it. It's a little bit different from how a lot of them work, because I like to just kind of fuck around and put my own spin on things. Well, I suppose putting my own spin on things is just a nice way of putting that. I see something online that I like, and I go, oh cool, what if I just like did some random shit, you know? What if I just, made these colors really pretty and also used a lot of black? That's pretty much my approach to things. So this is one of the several quilts that I'm working on right now because in true artist fashion, I can never seem to finish everything. I'm one of those artists who just has a billion whips that are, languishing unfinished for years while I start on a bunch of new projects. I joke, but it actually seems to kind of help my creative process to have a lot of things going on at once, because, I can be in one stage on one thing and a different stage on another project, and if I don't feel like working on cutting for one, say, I can go, well, that's fine, I'll just jump to my other one where I'm doing piecing or basting or whatever. But I may be getting a little bit ahead of myself with all that terminology. So if you are not an experienced quilter, if you don't really know much of anything about it, which honestly I kind of hope you don't, because if you're like an experienced quilter watching this, you're probably going to be cringing in pain at some of the things that I do. Like I said, I am an amateur, I am largely self-taught, so I'm sure that I am doing a lot of stuff really wrong or really ass backwards. I'm sorry in advance. I'm just gonna let you know now. That might be a little painful to watch. But for those of you that aren't super familiar, so the very basics of quilting are you have 3 layers that you make in a quilt. You have the quilt top, which is the part that I'm working on now. You have the batting, which is kind of like this soft inside layer. That, makes it nice and warm and thick, and then you have the backing, which is, it's the back. And then you have these 3 layers, and you quilt them all together. You sew through all 3 layers at the end of it, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but if you hear traffic noise, I'm sorry. I live right next to a very busy main road. There's no help in it. Like I said, this is going to be a totally low-effort, informal thing, so, I don't have money for soundproofing or anything. I'm sorry, there's just no helping it. Occasionally, you'll just hear a motorcycle going by. Okay. So with that, where was I? Right, so you sew together these 3 layers, and you have a quilt. And, a lot of people like to get really fancy with their quilt tops, there's a lot of artistry in it, and this is an art form that I actually learned how to do in, I want to say it was my freshman year of high school. I actually took a mixed media class, And one of the units that we had was learning how to make a quilt. So we learned the very basics. I learned how to sew together little square and triangle pieces to make a little design for the top. And we made kind of like a lap quilt size thing. I think it was about a yard by a yard. And I actually still have that quilt now. That's actually the cushion that I sit on for my chair, where I sit when I'm working on this stuff. So that was how I got my start, and I just find quilting to be, it's really satisfying in a way. Part of it is because I like sort of the tactile aspect of, I just like making something that I can feel, I like feeling the fabric. And I love using these bright colors, and there's just something about taking all of these shapes and putting them together in a way where they all fit perfectly together and you can make different designs with them. And I don't know, something about that just makes my brain go, it feels so nice. So that's kind of the appeal of quilting. I do all of my quilting by hand because I'm a masochist, because I actually find hand sewing very soothing. So the method that I'm using for this one is a particular method called English paper piecing. And basically how you do that is you have these templates, which, as you can see right now, the ones that I use are made of cardboard. I am cheap, and we don't have recycling at my apartment complex, so one of the ways that I reuse this cardboard that would otherwise just be going into the trash is I use them to cut out my templates. So you have the templates cut out into the shapes that will, make up the quilt top, and you will baste, that is temporarily sew on these pieces of fabric that you will patch together later. And you'll see more as I make more videos. This isn't really going to be a great series as like a tutorial. This is more just, I don't know, if you want to watch some sewing ASMR and listen to somebody talk about random shit. That's what this is gonna be. But you can see right now that I am kind of sewing the fabric over the template just enough to where, it wraps around the edges. And now that I have it sewn on, I will attach them together, and basically it helps to make sure that I keep the shapes nice and clean, nice and uniform. It's really, really handy for people who do hand sewing like me. I am actually pretty new to this. I only just learned how to do it. Well, this is actually the first quilt that I'm making with this method. And I really like it. It's really been like a godsend to me. So yeah, that's English paper piecing. I'll actually try and remember to link some of the tutorials that I used. I just taught myself how to do it by looking up shit on YouTube. So I'll see if I can remember to link some of that in the description, in case you actually want to see a better, explanation of how this is done. You're not really going to be able to see it now. I'm going to show more of the quilt in other videos. This is just sort of an intro/test run. This is, as I said, going to be a flower garden quilt. So what a flower garden quilt is, the traditional grandmother's flower garden quilt. You have hexagons usually, and you will sew them in circles around one central hexagon, and it makes it into flowers. These are not the flowers that I am basting right now. This is the the background for it, kind of. This is what's going to be, like, around the flowers, you know, so that they're separate and they're not all just, like, squished together next to each other. I really, really like, sort of vibrant colors against a black backdrop. I'm a little bit of a goth bitch, I'm not gonna lie. And also, I'm really, really into jewel tones and bright colors, and I just feel like having the black just really makes those colors pop. So again, I'll be showing more of this quilt in other videos that I make. I really like how it's coming out so far. But yeah, this is just kind of that first step. So I have several quilts that I'm working on alongside this one. I have, I think, 3 that I'm actively working on, and I have more that I've planned because I can't stop myself. I cannot be stopped. And I've also recently discovered an online, like, virtual graph paper tool that I'll also link in the description, and that is making designing quilts a lot easier. So basically, it's all over for you hoes. I am too powerful. I cannot be stopped. I designed and, like, colored in an entire quilt, and I am having to physically stop myself from starting yet another one when I still have 3 that are unfinished, some of which I've been working on for literal years. But, you know, isn't that just the life of an artist? So, yeah, now, let's see, what should I talk about next? See, this is the problem with making shit unscripted, is that it doesn't really occur to you that maybe it's actually a little bit harder to talk for 20 minutes straight than you thought. But by God, I'm an annoying bitch, so I will absolutely find a way. So I guess I can talk a little bit more about my templates and the thread that I'm using. So I generally try to be a pretty eco-friendly person, and quilting is unfortunately not a very eco-friendly hobby. This is something that I have kind of accepted to a certain point. The fabrics that you get, just, you know, the dyes and the process of making the fabric, it's not great for the environment. So I do try and make it eco-friendly in kind of some of the littler ways that I can. One of the ways that I do that is by using the recycled cardboard templates, like I mentioned, because, like I said, my apartment doesn't have recycling. If I didn't reuse it in this way, then, I mean, I would just be throwing it into the landfill. And also, part of the reason why I use the cardboard that I do, which is stuff like Coke boxes. You see a lot of Coke boxes. My roommates drink a lot of Coke. I don't like it, but, you know, hey, it gives me free cardboard for my templates, so it's fine. But part of why I use that particular kind of cardboard, you know, that specific weight, is because it is light enough that if need be, it's got a little bit of give, I can kind of bend it, and, you know, it's not like a super huge pain in the ass to cut, but it's heavy enough that I can reuse them over and over again. So what I'll do is, you know, a quilt top, like the one that I'm making now, it's going to be like, I think, kind of a lap quilt size. It's not going to be super huge, but, you know, it'll still consist of, you know, probably at least a few hundred of these hexagons. So what I'll do is I'll cut like 20 or 30 templates, and I'll actually show you in another video how I do that. But I'll cut like 20 or 30 templates, and I'll just reuse them over and over. I know that sometimes in English paper piecing, I've seen people use these paper templates that they actually just like straight up sew through when they do the basting. And, no shade if you do that, that's totally cool, but I prefer not to do it that way because, with those ones, you can use them once or twice, but eventually they're going to get perforated and they're not going to be usable. With these ones, I can use these 3, 4, 5, 6, many times, and I don't have to keep, using more cardboard. So that's an advantage to this. And you also might have noticed that I have this weird little, cluster of threads next to me on the table. That is because I reuse my basting thread as much as I can. So I have a particular thread that I use for basting. You can't really see it here, because I don't have the camera, super close to it, but the thread that I use is, thicker than, quite a bit thicker than what I use to stitch the pieces together, which is called piecing. I use thread that is thicker, partly because I really hate tying the little knots at the end, and if you have a thicker thread, you don't have to keep tying 3, 4, 5 knots to keep it from slipping through the other side when you poke the needle through. And also because if it's thicker, again, I can reuse it over and over. So that is one of the smaller things that I do. I do have to... These don't last as long as the templates do. It is kind of a pain to save them. I have to be careful not to get them tangled. And, as you keep threading them through needles over and over again, the ends will eventually fray. I'll have to kind of keep cutting them off like you've seen me do here a few times. And eventually they do, get so short that they're not really practical. But, I figure if I can reuse these even just 2 or 3 times, then, not only am I saving money on thread, but, I'm just not consuming as much. Reduce, reuse, recycle, all of that good shit. So that's kind of that's a couple of things that I do to keep my quilting just a little bit more eco-friendly. I also kind of like to use the templates made out of these repurposed food boxes and things like that because, I don't know, it's kind of weird to say this probably, but I think it's kind of neat to have the right sides out, the decorated sides out, because, when you stitch them together, and you look at the back of your quilt top, it's sort of like seeing a bit of a snapshot, oh, here's what I was doing, here's what I was using, here's what I was eating around this time, and, even just kind of the mix of colors it makes it colorful. It makes it kind of nice to look at on the front and on the back. And I just think that's kind of neat. You actually keep these templates in for a little while after you sew the pieces together. You don't take the templates out until you have sewn around each side of something. So basically, once a piece has been completely surrounded, you don't need the template anymore. That's when you can take it out and reuse the template and the thread and everything. And so, you've got these templates sticking in there for a little while, and it just makes something kind of neat to look at. And also, I don't know, I don't really like the way that the wrong side of the cardboard feels, the brown side. Doesn't feel good to me. So this has been my first episode. We're kind of coming up to the end here. I hope that, the 2 people who watch this will enjoy it. I really enjoyed making this. Thank you very much if you got this far. I hope that this has brought something interesting to your day. Stay tuned for more, and I hope that you have a good one. Thanks, everyone. Bye.